I haven't started yet. I'll show you. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll take care of you. All right, so right now I'm just quickly in the first person, just because we're not creating anything. I'm just showing you how to change some settings from before, and I just want to show you that inside of the blueprints, yeah.
You are recording this, right?
This is all This is recording, yeah. Right. You know, I mean, yeah, yes. All right, so your blueprint for your first person character. It's called first person character. You can search for it. It's the word first, not the numerical. And so this is your first blueprint that's not a level blueprint. The main difference being that it has these components here. You build a little bit of a world inside of here with various components. Like for instance, we'll do just maybe a trigger box and a light, and you'll see how we can make a class blueprint that will just turn on and off a light, and then we can repeat over and over again. But for right now, I'm just showing you that if you go into the first person blueprint and there's a mesh right here, it's called mesh inherited. Right here is where those arms are, and you can just say none or clear, and now they're gone. So if you want to go back and get a better screenshot later on, I'm sorry I didn't show you this earlier. He should all be done. Yeah, so he's not there. And if you want to go flying around, whoosh, there is one more element called, over here in your Windows, you have a thing called World Settings, so we're not going to do much with this. It's basically how we choose our game mode. I have mine docked over here. Game mode are the rules that that are overarching over your entire game. You can choose that one level is a third person, another level is a first person, all these kind of things, how everything is scored. We're not doing that because we're not really making games. But if you ever go to this part that says game mode, and you just do regular game mode, so you'll see world settings from window, world settings, and then it might pop anywhere, but mine is right here. Bring it out for you. Here it is. And in game mode, if I make it actually just game mode instead of first person or none, and then I hit play, then I actually have, I thought I had, well, you should be able to then not be able to fly around. That's the whole point, is that you get better screenshots that way. And I will record something later on because that worked 100 times beforehand. And that's where you do it, because I did that for a bunch of people over at ITP the other day. Where's the list? All right, so let's do really quickly a class blueprint while I'm here. Okay, so I'm in my blueprints folder in my content browser, and instead of just throwing something in there, I'm going to actually first create a blueprint class. For those who've taken the, so in my so let's back up. So you have a content folder, right? And it's part of every game you make, or every project you make. If I want to keep everything sorted, I can create a blueprints folder. And that's all. It's just a way of organization. Thank you for stopping me though. Because you'll make a few, every interaction will be probably a blueprint and keep them all sorted. So we have no blueprints really for class blueprints. For those of you who've taken coding, we're going to be basically creating the rules by which one interaction can take place, and then we can drag instances of that into our world over and over and over and over again, where each one would be an object. And we'll just do the very simple light. Everything that's in our world is considered an actor. That's just Unreal terminology. It's part of the documentation. Just know that that's what we're going to be using the most. And then I'm going to give it the naming convention BP underscore, and this is going to be light toggle, so I can find it. All right. So when I open it up, I'm going to go back into what we saw before, that we have this viewport area that's kind of blank. We have places where we can add in functions and variables over here, and then the details panel for each of the items we bring in. So this is now where we bring everything, add things to our blueprint. Yeah. It doesn't. I definitely am not in the homework from last time. You can do it anywhere you want to. I don't want you can do it in your homework if you want to as well. It doesn't matter. So to create that blueprint, I right clicked and I created a blueprint right there. All right. And all I want is the same things we were dealing with before. Before we were dragging over from here a trigger box and dragging over a light. We're just going to be pulling it from this components. Within your blueprints, you have a root, and everything you add is component. And later on, we try to reference those things. We'll be referencing those components. And all I'm doing is looking for a trigger. A box trigger. Here it's called box collision. So there it is. I just clicked on it. It's part of my components. Just like everything else in my other level, I can rotate it. I can resize it. And there it is. And all I want to work with today is I just want to work with a light. So I'm going back to components. And I have a light. This is exactly what we did in the level blueprints last week. I'm just doing it in a different place. So there's that light. And all I want to do is toggle it off and on. So instead of level blueprints where we had that graph editor, this is now nested in here next to the viewport. We have a construction script, which is kind of like your what's that shit called? Your void. What? Void setup. It's your setup, yeah. This is where we draw, right here in the event graph, just like in the level blueprint. Okay? With this box selected, just like before, I'm going to add an event, which is beginning the overlap, and I probably want to have an end overlap. I have a point light. And then all I'm doing is toggling visibility. If he wants to drag for me. Listen to those video cards go. Going in, we'll toggle it. Going out, we'll toggle it. Yeah. I went over here to my components list where the point light is. I added in, and I just drug it in. If you're in a class blueprint, the components should be on the left side. If it's not, maybe you can add the components right here from your window. So when I go to my box, I know that I want to create an event. This is just like how we did it last week. I'm going to go to the element that I want to create an event for. When I either can right-click on the thing over here in the components list, which is the new element that we didn't have in level blueprints, or I can right-click in the space, and just like we did before, you have an event, and you can say begin overlap or end overlap with it selected in the components. And then while dragging out of the point light, I just let go. And it gives me a context menu that I can just say toggle visibility. And I found it from the list. Yeah. The blue thing? This thing right here? This blue thing right here. The blueprint. Sorry.
The blue box.
Yes. These are functions. These are activities that we can trigger. Yeah, these are different things like changing color or toggle visibility, just like the interactions we just did last week. Yeah. This is the same exact blueprint I made last week. It's just done in a different place in a class blueprint. So when I compile and save, I'm actually going to go into the details now at this point light, because I want to make sure it's really bright so I can see it, so I know that I made my interaction. So I went to intensity. And you can always give it colors and all that kind of stuff. Right now it's white. Maybe if I made it this lovely color of blue. And compile. And this is not even part of the homework. This is just because a lot of people wanted to know how to do this. And I want to give you guys a little bit more exposure to blueprints. Okay? If you don't have a mouse, let's see. So I just do a 2-finger tap on a MacBook Pro. I get right click. Okay. It's a little hard to navigate around in this space though with the trackpad. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, the context is just a way of its way of like reducing these 500 functions that you can do. It's trying to be intuitive and like reduce it down to 20 things that are relevant to a point light. So because I drug off, I was trying to do a context sensitive. You can always just right click and try to just do toggle, and then there we see toggle visibility as well. So I just switched over tabs to go back to my project. This is just the blueprint just sitting here and hanging out. And you see, as I bring it over here, there it is. There's the box I made, which might be hard to see from the projection. Indeed, the box is here, and there's my light. Okay? And then I could do this again. And again. Infinitely. You can oftentimes build your interaction in the level blueprints to make it easy for you. And maybe you can copy and paste into a class or recreate it in class. But this is just what I made last week, except for there's no color changing. All the lights are on, so when I run through it, it should turn off.
So before in the level blueprint, you selected an object and made an interaction, but now is it the class blueprint you can build? You can just drag that object and have it 100 times in there without selecting.
So if you want your lights to, every time you walk by them, to flicker, to create a sound, to do whatever, instead of creating 100 different instances of that in your level blueprint, you're just doing it once and having it work for you over and over again. And so as we get into building worlds, I just wanted you guys to know that this is there. There's so much documentation on this online. I gave you guys 2 more YouTube channels you can do this. These are just called class blueprints. Look for that, and they can give you guidance. But this is a way of doing a lot more than just 1 or 2 interactive events. Sure.
I've used Project up and looking in the first person shooter, there's already a blueprints folder there, and it's already for like child blueprints. Are you working off of that, or?
I made a brand new blueprint. Yeah, I just was in my context, my content browser. I right-clicked in the empty space, and I said, and you right-click, and you'll see a blueprint. And then I chose an actor blueprint. It's just a class, and every time you add an instance of that, it's an object that's inside. So that's how you reference the difference between classes and objects, just like when you're coding and processing or any of the other languages. In C++, this is literally a class. You're creating an interactivity, and you're creating an instance of it every time you drag it out. And if I wanted to add random color, each one would be choosing a different random color. So you can create a hallway of lights that all turned on and off in different colors.
What about the shortcut for that? To copy and paste?
To copy and paste the blueprint, I just drug it from the content
Oh, just that.
into the world wherever I wanted it. Yeah. Matt?
If I make a change to the blueprint and compile it, will existing actors?
It'll affect every single one of them. We'll get into it much later, hopefully, that you can create a template blueprint that you can then alter. In the same way, we're going to do that with materials, that you're going to make a material you really like, but if you want to have one be green or red, we're going to show you how to do that later on. But it might not be for a little while. But yes, it will. If you want to do it just to one, I would create a new blueprint. All right? Didn't want to scare you guys. I just wanted to go ahead and just do that. So we're going to start from scratch, and we're now going to exist in the third-person view. I'm going to create a new project by launching 483, which works with our plugins that we're going to be using later on. And I'm going to create a new project. You see I have my old projects here on this tab. And then I have my new projects, which I'm going to be doing a blueprint project. And I want to create the third person, which is this guy right here. It says third person here. It's labeled. And then I get to choose that I want to start with some starter content. So I've only clicked those two buttons, third person with starter content. And then wherever I want to save it, what I want to call it. I'm going to call this week 3. And I already made week 3, so I will make this 3B. Anyway. And I'm going to create the project, and then it will reopen. And this is how the third person project opens up. I have, you'll notice I have 2 content browsers. That just makes it easier for me to drag and drop things from one folder to another, which you're allowed to have like 4 of those. Let's see, where is that? Content browsers. And that's just however you want to set up your own default layout. And it kind of saves it. Whatever you last used, it'll be that way. So if you use somebody else's computer, it'll be whatever they made. All right, so welcome to the third person world. This is our Unreal mascot right here. And I'm right clicking and I'm dragging around in this space after I hit play. This is a selfie stick. It's called a swing arm, but this is essentially a selfie stick. You can see all these screenshots. It could be really cool. And I'm just rotating around him. I'm right-clicking inside the space. Actually, I'm not right-clicking. I'm just dragging, actually. I have a mouse. It's the same way with my trackpad. I'm just moving my finger around. Here he is. And in the same directions, you got the same key presses you guys were using to navigate your world before is true of this guy. And spaces jump. Yeah, this one is non-violent. There's no shooting. I was happy to get out of that one as soon as possible. So this is just navigation of a third-person thing. This just gives you an idea of a camera placement in relationship to a character. It's getting you used to the idea of framing and being able to frame within, being able to see what you're going to be doing. Where's your interactive zone? Am I going to go through this little thing? It says, I figured I was going to actually do something. Anyway, I thought so too. Probably, yeah. So there's that's actually getting to me exactly where I was going to show you, is that you have this third-person character in this world, and we're going to look at blueprints again. So I just found it in my world outliner. You can also type in the search bar to find it, to reduce the amount of options to choose. And it's a third-person. So it has all sorts of wonderful things in there. I just want to let you guys know that if you go down to, so look over there on my left side where my components are. You see there's a camera boom, that's a selfie stick. Yeah? Yeah, so this is, in my world outliner, I found this character. I got my mouse back by hitting Shift F1 or Shift F1. Now I have my mouse. I will have my mouse. Or you don't have to be playing. You can just hit Escape and stop. And then he's right here, the third person character. I can search for it in the search bar, and there he is. Or I can just find him in the alphabetized list of all the items in my world. And I hit edit. There's a little hyperlink there next to his name. You see, like that's out more maybe. A little hyperlink. I can also, not to throw out too many things, you can also find them in the content browser. Any changes you make to either of these will be the same. Will affect either. So I can double click it there. It's the same one. Did you find it? All right, awesome. So I just want to point you to this one thing, which is character movement, and these are all your the speed and the jump and all that kind of stuff. These are those details of how he moves. So if you want to mess around, because this week you're going to be making a landscape or an environment, and this guy's going to be your guide. He's going to be walking around inside of it. So if you do want him to go faster, if you want him to go slower, if you want to jump higher, this is where that is. All those details are different things. There's not really much that I do with it. All right. Yep, so we've talked about components inside of that one, and we talked about the selfie stick and everything like that. So I am going to stop this rendering right now. I'm going to go to my root, my content folder, my root content folder, and I have brought in, we have the third person stuff because we're making a third person game. We have the starter content because I wanted to include the starter content. I want a place for my things, so I'm just going to create a folder called assets. And I'm going to go inside of there. So today we're going to be making, we're going to make a new level. We're going to make materials and out of textures. So I'm just going to make some folders. This is, you guys will be sharing projects soon. So I just want you guys to be able to find things like maps, which you may only have one map. You might make a few. I might have some textures, which are just 2D textures, just like you would find like pictures and stuff. And we're going to convert them to materials that you put onto objects in three-dimensional space. Probably going to make a blueprint. And everything I'm doing in this space, just like in Unity, if you've used that before, is also creating these folders on your hard drive. So you can find things that way as well. You can create folders that way as well. So for me, to go through the process with you guys again, I'm going to my Maps folder. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to create a new level. And we're going to start from scratch. So we're going to deal with, this is going to be material test 1, or we call it week 3, or whatever we want to call it. Week 3 material. I'm going to open it up and save. It's going to prompt me to save it. Sure, saving it. And now we're in this black world like we were last week. And last week so we were trying to use BSPs, brushes. They're just quick ways of making level geometry. And now we've graduated. The ones you did before, you can actually select them all and convert them to static meshes, so you have an actual world. But we're going to just start from scratch and go into the basic objects.
So you can't make static meshes out of the BSP.
Yes. It's not pretty because it involves more like UV mapping and stuff, so I'm not going to go through it right now because it's. This is going to be easier to show you just a box with the material on it. So like before, we're going to put in a light, and I see that's cropped off. I'm going to bring that in a little bit. There we go. All right, I'm going to bring in a light, and I want a little bit of an environment to put it in. So last week we used atmospheric. Today we're going to use, so here are my visual effects. We can use fog, and there's another fog called exponential height fog. We're going to use this one. So now we just have this box. Cube, light, and some fog. Nothing more than that. On my cube, you will see that I have details over here, and you see that the static mesh is indeed a cube. And then here I have a material, and it says base shape material. Basic, sorry, shape material, which is white. We can go find it if we want to. I want to create a new one.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
In World Outliner, I'm following along, but I don't have the signal matching active. Oh, I'm okay.
I'll never ignore you. Look at those graphics cards. Just hear them whirring. All right. So I'm going to create a new material, guys. This is another node-based interface for materials. For me, I want to keep it organized, so I'm going back to my assets, and I'm going to go to my materials folder. I was using direction light. Either's fine, just so you can see what you're doing. It's just about visibility. You can add in both if you'd like. So my materials, in the same way we created the blueprint and we created levels, I can just right-click in this empty space. It says right-click to create content. Right-clicking, and right here next to blueprints and levels, we have materials. So material, I give it a capital M underscore, and this is the first material, material 1. I'm in the content browser, assets, and I made a folder called materials. And I just right-clicked in that space, and I made a material. So I'm going to save real quick, just in case it crashes. And I'm going to double-click, and this is now our new home for the next few minutes. So our materials, we could do a lot of different things with them, but we're going to deal with basically just color for right now, and maybe glow and some other things. But we're going to give this guy a color first. Now this is not including like an alpha channel. We're just talking about 3 numbers: an R, a G, and a B. So I know that is I could press the 3 button and click, and I've created a little color box. It's also here on the right side. It's called a constant 3 vector. But I can just click in this empty space and just create, while holding down 3, and just create all these. I just need one. I'm just practicing. If I click in the space, you have a color wheel, and you have numerical values, HSV if you're familiar with that and you prefer that. And I have like a light and a dark, and I want to choose my colors, and I'm really happy with this purple. And so now I have this purple. On this left side, you'll see a sphere, which could also be cylinder or plane. And that's where it's going to display my material as soon as I make it. I'm going to drag it over, and now I have a material. It's simply just a purplish, violet, I'd say it's violet, base color. All right. So I also have this emissive color right down here. Emissive means brightness or glowy. So we can also give it a little bit of glow. I'm just dragging off this node from here into the other node, just like in the blueprints.
What about surfaces? For example, if I'm doing a mat with some grass, I just create another blueprint?
If you want to make a material for that thing, or
Yeah. So if I'm in this screen, and I not only want it to grow, but I want it to get grassy with it.
so we'd probably use an image of grass, and we're going to go there as soon as I make something out of color. We're going to do that with with an image. I'm going to download something off of Google Images, and we'll go with that. Okay. So anyway, I have my color. I'm just going to start with color. And as you saw, we have a 3 things, an R, G, and a B. Most of these values take values between 0 and 1. And to give it a value of 0 or 1, I'm just going to send it one value. One constant. One number that's not going to change. I can drag it out. I can press 1 and click. Or I can right-click and say constant. It's just one number, and the details in here on the left side, the value. So by default, everything is just it's all zeroed out. So therefore, to give it a number more than 0 would change the look of this thing. So I see this is violet, and I want to maybe make it look metallic. So let me take this 0 and actually make it a 1. Or it could be any value in between. And now, look at that. Now you have a little car color. Now it's metal. If you want to make it specular, means how lights glint off of it, and the best way to see what a specular does is to add specular and have 0, and then maybe turn it to 1 and see how it has a little bit more of a white spot there. It blows out. It's like the opposite of shadows, kind of. And we can go on and on, all the way down the list of things. Like roughness means smooth or more of a matte, more like a cloth. So roughness at 0 is completely smooth. It's reflecting a world that I have no idea where that is. Can I mess around with which parameters? Yeah, so if I go to 1, you're going to see that it's actually going to be rough. It's going to be matte. It's going to be soft, it looks like a racquetball ball. Yep. Nope. So these are the ones we're going to kind of work with today. These materials. So all these things can be. All materials have everything you can do. All this math you can do in here. You can add numbers together. You subtract numbers away from each other. You can take 2 colors and multiply them by each other. You can make things really complicated. And some of the examples get too complicated. And if you guys have been looking at them, they might have seemed a little bit overwhelming. So that's why we're just going to do everything from scratch. Now, I think using images is a great idea. And let's go ahead and go for that. I'm going to just minimize my Unreal. And I don't have to do any training with you guys on Google. We're just going to go Google. And you said you want to do grass or whatever. Yeah. Well, we're going to do grass a little bit later. So maybe we should go ahead and start collecting a grass image. All right. So I'm in images. Now it's kind of an old technique, but let's say texture, so it'd be flat. So here we have some grass textures. You'll see this first one is 1024 by 1024. It's a power of 2, like 256, 512, all that stuff. That's kind of an old thing for older graphics cards, to keep it as a power of 2. You're going to see me constantly do it anyway, because old habits die hard. But being square makes it easier to manage for tiling it, so I didn't mean to go there. I just want to have my grass. And there it is. And I'm going to go, and we're going to show you the other side of the content browser on your Finder. If I go to my Unreal project, and go to the content browser, and let's say I want to find this material. I right-click on it. Now all I'm trying to do is get to the Finder of my project. This is also my Documents folder. And I show in Finder. There it is. Now you can see my content folder. This is my project. We called it Week 3B. And what I think is really important is on this root level, next to your content folder, is I make a folder called Imports. because when you are sharing a project with somebody else, everything you drag into the game is going to convert it to a U asset. But let's say you're like, oh, I wish I had changed that thing before I put it in. So it's good to keep everything you're importing so you can go back and change it should you want to change it outside of Unreal. So I'm going to take this image that I found of grass and just drag it in there. And so this is a 2D texture. So I'm going to put it in my texture folder. And just by dragging. Just by dragging. Wait for it. Yeah. There it goes. And then it has a little star by it because you just added it in. I'm just going to save in case I crash or anything. So this is just a texture. There's not really any settings here I would change. If I was going to do any changes to this image, I'd probably do it in Photoshop. So this is just going to be my raw asset for my material. So with it selected here, I'm going to go back to my material. And now I want to add in a texture. And obviously, this is this color right here is just the RGB. So I need to add in a texture box, which is handy enough. If you hold down T and click, it's a texture sample. Because I had it selected in my content browser, it automatically loaded in. I can also just drag it in from the content browser, and there it is. And this,
UVs is short for that.
which one? UVs? We're actually going to do that just next. So just hold on tight for that one. So my texture sample has everything. It has all my colors put together. And then as you see, it's color-coded. It has a red channel and a green and a blue. And this last one is alpha, transparency. This image has no transparency, so this would be just black. So I can just I can break this link to the purple. And if I just want blue grass, go from the blue, and well, it's gonna be a black and white image because the black and white images together that's a different kind of exercise dealing with how the color values add together. Or green. It's like red. All of these together is this image. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I went over back to my world. And with this world selected, I can go to my details panel. And I can find M underscore, and I called it what, week? I can find it here. Material, I call it mat1. So I can drag my material over to my object like this. I can also, with it selected, hit this left arrow that says use selected asset from content browser. Now I've made my own material. So if you were, let's say, like Brett, and you were curious about what UVs are, who's dealt with UVs here before? Okay, so UVs, we're going to, basically you're dealing with a world of X, Y, and Z. We're dealing in 3 dimensions. UV are just 2 more coordinates, and it's a way of referencing how a 2D image can be mapped to a 3-dimensional world. Ultimately, for today, it's going to deal with how large the image is on the object. Right now, you saw that it matched perfectly 1-to-1. But what if you wanted to have just a subsample of that, or if you wanted to have this repeat many times as like little tiles? Well, it's called UV, and luckily, Unreal said that let's make the shortcut be U. So I'm going to hold down U and click. And this is what's a basic UV. It's a red vertical gradient and a green horizontal gradient. That's not important, but it is going to be fun to play with later on. Connect it to UVs, and I look over at my details panel, and I say it's like, yes, it's a 1-to-1 kind of correlation. Now if I wanted to make this thing tile, and not just be fit to the image left, top and down. Oh, by the way, U, we'll find out in just a second. U is down and D is to the right. I always forget. So let's see. I'm going to make U, make a 5. Looks like U is left to right. It's now tiling a bunch. Squished it this way. If I want to make it symmetrical, I'll switch this to 5 too. Now you can see the kind of the patterns are forming. This is at 5 times across and 5 times up. If I save this, it'll be reflected. And here as well. And then I can always do any of the other changes I want to as well.
How do you get in text
Text coordinates was, yeah, it should be called UV, but it's just U and clicking or right-clicking and saying UV in the context menu and finding texture coordinates. Actually, I should say looking for texture coordinates. Coordinates. There you go. Oh.
I mean, material has run. I no longer can access my asset folder.
No, no.
Um,
So you can add in another object.
yeah,
What are you trying to ultimately do?
I'm just trying to take the material that we created
Mhm.
and put it on the cube.
Okay.
And I just don't know how to access that material.
Okay, so you can always use the search context. So you have the cube selected in your outliner, and then you go down material, and if you remember what you called it, you can click down here and search for it. And I called mine week 1 or mat 1.
Yeah, but it's the fact that they,
Did you save material? And if you're making things along with me, you have this little So while we're catching up and putting materials on something, we're going to go into the Googles and we're going to find, I'm going to show you an amazing application that's free to download and that I'm going to be using right now. It's called Crazy Bump. It's free for Mac or Windows.
all the tools that they're using?
All the toolkit's been using it for years. And you can download the version for your operating system. It's small and it's beautiful. I already have it installed. So with Crazy Bump, it's just a simple interface. I'm just gonna say open, and I'm gonna open a photograph from a file. And luckily, I still have my asset in my imports. So I just navigate to find my import folder, which will be, in a Mac, will be a recent place. And I can find that picture of grass. Oh, it's gonna be with 3D imports. So I found my grass and I'm loading it into Crazy Bump. And I just hit open and it's going to think. So what Crazy Bump is going to do is it's going to give us a series of textures that we can load into our material interface to create more interesting and realistic materials. So it wants to know which one it is. Is it like basically is it concave or convex? I always choose the wrong one. So I'm just going to go counterintuitive and say it's this one. So what this has done is it's now created this material out of textures. And it's going to spew out a bunch of different textures that we can put in different inputs on the material node. So if I am happy with this, I can look at it as a ball or as a column, as a box. You see how the light is moving around the crevasses. So I'm just gonna export. I'm fine with all the settings. I don't care. I'm gonna hit save. Wait. Where's all? Nope. Easy bump. Don't care. So I have my color, and I have some other things. We're going to show you how these things work together. So I save normals. 1 second. Oh, I'm using an old version. The new version, you can download all 5 of these textures at once. I'm going to do it one by one. You guys will be ahead of me now. And I'm going to put everything into my imports folder so I can find it and import it. And as I said, you guys will have a download all option. And then when we plug them in, you'll see what they do. So I'm going back to my Unreal project so that I can now drag and drop them in. So in my content browser, I'm going to navigate to Assets, and then Textures. And next to my grass, I want to put in all these. There's also an import button that you can use, or you can drag them from your Finder. And they're all here in my imports. Drag it in. I'm going to save. So I already have a color one in there. I really don't need it. But these other 4 are going to do some interesting things. I'm going to go drag my material window over here to the side so I can kind of drag and drop into it. Where do you go? There we go. And when I put these in my material. And now the graphics card is going to start again. So there all 4 of them are. So what we're going to do is we're going to fake 3-dimensional features using just two-dimensional textures. And by doing that, we're going to basically create more interesting lighting scenarios on our objects and shadows. So the things that, so we can kind of unconnect some of these other items. For instance, because we were able to import one that was called grass.spec. That is a new specular map. Instead of using the 0 to 1, we're going to do a matrix of zeros and ones. This is a texture where black is 0 and 1 is white. And I'm going to put it in here. Move things I'm not using out of the way. I'm also going to put my texture back to 1:1 just so we can see it more clearly. And now normals. Normals is this beautiful pink and purple image. We'll just have a functional knowledge that normals basically dictate how light reflects off our object, how the angles of the light rays hit it. We just know that they're called normals. We'll let Pedro tell you more about why they do that. But I'm going to put it in the normals. Normals goes to normals. Specular goes into specular. And I'm just going to leave the other one alone just because let's just want to see what this looks like before we go too far. Let's see these changes happen. So I'm going to save my material now that I have a specular and a normal in there.
Do you need net texture to do this?
No, because I moved my UV back to default 1:1. So everything's going to be default 1:1. So now you can see the shadows, whereas before it was flat. Now we've added so much more texture to this material, and we can see that even though it's just a flat box, we've tricked it into visually really easily processing all this complex geometry, even though it's just one polygon.
So each time you want to have your changes reflected on the material, you have to click apply.
Apply or save does it for you. If you don't want to save because you want to revert to another thing, just hit apply for testing. But yeah, when you want to go move on, hit save. So with the remaining time, I'm going to show you how to do a landscape and put on some grass. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead too quick. Yes. You would probably want to do like create these. There is a way to do it with UV, but you basically would be processing in something else like After Effects first, or some other different software package, making the different colors. There is some different nodes, but we're not going to get into those functions. That'd be kind of like your own self-exploration. But yes, you can basically do like a RUT out of these materials. It won't be as displaced as like some of that other kind of stuff, but we can also do. We can get some different places. And materials is basically all of jitter is here. And I'm just trying to show you that this is a little bit, and it's like we'll make. I'll make one more crazy material after we do landscapes. So I want to make sure we get done with landscapes because that's kind of the assignment for this week. So if everyone's ready, or if any other questions about the materials we've made, all right. So if we go back up to these modes at the top, we're usually in this place mode. We're always placing things inside of our space, but we're going to go over here to landscape. And I'm going to click on it. It's going to give us kind of a new little interface here on the top left. So now I hit landscape and it put us into landscape mode. Basically, you can see that it wants me to make something here. This means something. There are a few settings that I'm not going to even fiddle with. I'm just going to hit create. I just want this flat plane. And by doing that, I now have this giant world. It's changed the context window to, say, sculpt. And you see that my mouse is now being followed around by two spheres, one inside the other. And what this is going to do is that when I press, it's going to raise up the earth. And then also, there's going to be a fall off from the inside circle to the outside circle. So here we go. This is an additive process. I can sculpt on top of things. So we are the creators and destroyers of worlds, guys. So you can move around. This is a much larger space than we've dealt with before. So you might have to go up to camera speed on the top right and like crank it up, and you'll see that then you can navigate whip fast. Oops. Whip fast around. So you can change that speed depending on how much you want to do. I'm going to come up here. Oh, let's talk about the settings in the brush. So you have over here you have the brush size. You can make, the big as it goes is, let's see, 8192. So I can actually hit giant mountain there. Let's see if I can override that. No, it did not like that at all. Oh no, I did it. I made an even bigger one. There you go. See if I can make one as big as the world. There we go. Boom. Big mountain. You can obviously override a lot of settings in this. And then you have the fall off, which is, you can see how much fall off you want. If you're just going to paint in the very center, or if you want it to be very little fall off. And then the strength. The strength is how quickly it draws. If you want to do really subtle touches, give it a really small number, and you'll just paint a little bit at a time. We can't even see. I have to go in there and see how subtle I'm painting it. So let's say I went back to place mode. If I hit landscape again, it should open up these three options, and we're going to be sculpting here in the center. So what you guys can play around with, the sculpt tool has different kind of shapes, and I'm not going to go through them, but you can choose to make different shapes and patterns. It isn't just making circular mountains the entire time. You can mess around with fall off, and you can create a landscape. Now I'm in a third-person game.
You can also like use the textures that you're doing with Tracy Bomb to be the palette, like the brush for your landscape. You can bring in that texture.
Yeah, you can bring in patterns, all that kind of stuff.
So start. So lay the material down on it before you start.
No, he was saying about using the shapes of the textures of. So like what I'm painting on is like a flat circle. You can actually, just in like Photoshop, where you can have different kind of hash marks and different kind of textures, those can be the strength of your brush and actually the texture of your brush. And those are what you guys can explore underneath which shape you're using for your brush. You have a couple of different fall-offs that or visually tell you what they do. And then if you care to make some different things, you can do like a ramp. So there's all these options. I could say ramp. You have one ramp, another ramp. You can zoom in. And I can say, okay, this is the beginning of my ramp. This is the end of my ramp. And I want to ramp up like that. And I want to be really wide. And then I'm going to add ramp. And now I have a ramp there. So there's all sorts of different little sculpting tools you'll get to play with while you build your worlds. And there's no point in me just demoing every single one of them. So obviously we made a grass texture. We have a landscape. I'd really like to add it to there. We also have this cube here. It's hanging. Oh, so when I want to go back to editing and placing things, I want to leave, just like Eve did, I want to leave my landscape mode and go back to my placing mode. I missed my cube. I want to bring him back. He's hidden. I'm going to put him at the top of this ramp. And let's see what the scale of this world is. I'm going to add a player start so I know exactly where my character is going to start, which will be right here. And then when I hit play, I'm now in this world that I just created. And I can run around. Which object? The cube was at 0, 0, 0, and we made a giant mountain there. So yeah, it was underneath. If you go to your cube, if it's still hidden, escape, you double click on your cube, it'll take you to it, and that's where you know where it is. I move mine up. I think I also F does that. Yeah, F also takes you to whatever object you have selected. So there's my cube. And just like the other object, like the cube, we can go to our landscape. Is now an object in our world outliner that has a material slot. We can go from our asset folder to our materials. and drag a material. It's going to have to compile all that because it's a large amount of space. Looks like you got some cool fog settings there, Rudy. No? Yeah? How many landscapes? Well, you can add as much as your computer can do. I've added different landscapes on top of each other. You can use the landscape tool as a way of making generative height fields, and I'm maybe able to get into that in a second. But I haven't had any problems with it. If you want to go really, really wide, it's a thing called level streaming, and it's a way of it knowing how big it is. And there's a whole example in the contents library on how to stream levels so that it doesn't have to process endless amounts of geometry. For our intensive purposes, this default size is more than enough. And speaking about fog settings, we put in the exponential height fog, and I'm gonna go to my player start, and I'm gonna go to my exponential height fog, and this is just sliders. You guys can mess around with sliders, but we can add fog to our world. And you say where it starts from us, and when I play, we have fog. We've just like hidden the edge of our world now. And we have our grass. Yeah, I'm not.
With the new displacement stuff you
Mhm.
do, that's not actually like offsetting anything about it.
Right, it's just flat geometry.
Tricky design.
Yeah, it's just with it's like a graphics processing thing, and it's a trick of the computer. And it's so just like when we looked at that cube. This is one surface. Oh, I'm way too fast. But you see that all those shadows, that's based off those normal maps and displacements. So quickly, I'm going to go to my assets folder just to show you a couple things. I'm going to ramp up the speed a little bit. And I'm going to have a folder for meshes or models. I do want to show you guys, and I posted this to Slack already. There's a website called The Free 3D Models. If you've worked with 3D before, like Cinema 4D has its own proprietary C4D file. OBJ is another file, OBJ for object. We're actually in Unreal dealing with only FBXs. It's just what Autodesk, who makes Maya, they have this pipeline between Maya and Unreal, and that's what we're going to adhere to. So I have a whole world of things I can download and throw into my world, and they're just pictographs that have different categories. So if I want to add in a building, I can click on the building section, and then I want to look for FBX. So there's a whole list of all these different. This is the whole world of 3D. It's a mess, but we want just FBX. And I think this farmhouse is just fantastic. So you guys will have to sign up. I just signed up yesterday, so it should work for me. Maybe you don't have to sign up. It makes you wait. I guess it's thinking that you're going to click on an ad or something in the meantime. I don't know. It's just like it wants to, offset instant gratification. So this is going to go to my downloads folder, which I'm going to move to my imports folder. Okay, grab my Finder. I'm going to have imports there, get my downloads there. I'm going to find this random crap, what was it called? 219 or whatever. Alright, so inside of this folder, I have the different objects, and I'm going to bring in this farmhouse FBX. Same way I've done everything else. I'm going to go into my meshes folder, and I'm going to drag, and then I'm going to drop. And I get an import. On this import, if this is the first time you ever brought in a mesh, it should be fine. Everything just stays as it is. I've now imported this model. It gives me a warning, but that's not an error. And I'm going to save my project. And then you'll notice in my meshes I now have some textures. I have a material. If I hover over it, it says what they are. Texture, texture, material. And then this one's a static mesh. If I double click on it, it's going to bring up a static mesh editor. And I see that I have this farmhouse I just downloaded. There's no limit to how many things you download for that website. Go crazy. Things that are very complicated looking, though, will have a lot of different polygons, and they'll be hard to import, especially on your laptops. So go for small things or simple looking things at first so you don't crash anything. What's up? They can be separate if you want more modularity, especially if you're going to have moving parts. In my farmhouse look, I can zoom in on it and I see it's super tiny. So I have all the rotation and the position stuff right here. I'm just going to kind of make it 10 times as big.
But you do that in Unreal, not when you bring it as an FBX. It's a little tiny thing.
Well, it's not always. It's just.
But in this case, like
It was.
you build something in Maya that has a lot of faces and polygons, that probably is going to crash.
So I'm going to rotate a little bit so it looks like it's on this little hill. About to teeter over. Or whatever. There we go. And this is like it was always been there. And I'm going to hit play. And look at this. He's got a home. Right? Right, guys? Right? Right? Look, I scaled it pretty well. Oh, he can't get his own house. This is about collisions. It's making just basically there's an invisible collision wall right there. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. If it happens to you, if you need something, like, basically come to me if you have any problems. Everyone's got an individual thing they want to do, and I'll do it for you or I'll help you do it. Or I'll give you the resources to find it. But this is enough that you know how to bring things in, change things, materials. Add fog to make everything mysterious. Super important. Look at my list of things. Oh, so let's just have a little fun real quick. I'm going to go back to level blueprints. Yes. So we're just not going to be able to get to that. I'll maybe make another tutorial, like over the weekend or something, but it's going to take. So I just loaded a material to do layers. You have to do that. You have to make a layered material, and that would take probably about 25 minutes to show you guys. So I'll do like a separate tutorial. I have it prepared if you want to do it, but I have other things I need to show you for your homework. Because we need to bring in objects. So this is obviously architecture, very inspired by Pina for me. I don't remember that scene, but could have been there. We can also go to the same website and bring in different objects, and lean a shovel against there, or make this little world that's around us. I'm going to go into my blueprints real quick, and I'm just going to do a level blueprint, just a general setting I want to do. And there's a thing called time dilation. Just let me show you it. And I'm going to set it. And I'm going to make 2 of these. And the default is 1. And I'm going to do a fraction of 1. And what I'm doing is I'm going to change the definition of time within this world. So I'm going to put a key press here. I'm just going to put T for time. And I'm going to say when I press it, I want to slow down time. And I let go, come back to the normal time. Just flip it so it's not crossed. So I'm going to compile that. You'll see we're in the level blueprint because there's no components over here. I go back to my world, and then I can go forward, I can jump and I hit T. Oh, jump and I hit T, and I change the definition of time. So you can do bullet time. So practice jumping, doing this, and then use your camera to swirl around and see different things while you jump through space. Maybe that's a little slow. I'm a little dramatic, I guess. So we'll just change the setting to be maybe only like half the speed of time. Let me play, go forward, jump.
You could add, change the combination
What was that one more time?
You could add 0 combination.
I think that's probably how you do pause. Yeah.
Do you have non-global combination?
Go for it.
Should I make a class blueprint and give the object a some combination?
Yeah, you can do different definitions of speed for different objects. You'll see that with particle systems a lot. And like if you don't want to slow down the whole world, but we want to make trails on somebody, we can set a different dilation for like individual particle effects in your classes. So yeah, that'll be something that'll be particle day. But that's a great question. Yeah. I'm gonna go through my list and see what else I could do real quick for you. I do want to talk to you real quick about something else that's going to be in the world of Google. There's a thing called a height map. If you've ever used Rhino or some other things like displacement maps, you can find satellite imagery height maps or grayscale images. So let's say height map grayscale. And instead of carving out a world, I can import an actual place into my landscape. So I can download this file, which is, I have no idea. I did Hawaii earlier today. And I'm just going to put it in my downloads for right now to be messy.
Yeah, if it's 700 by 352, that would be right.
I think that if anything, it's just going to be lower resolution than we need. But, I mean, play with it. I like this world. Am I still slow? No, now I'm really slow. Anyway, so I can go out of here, and I am going to, well, screw it. I'm not that happy with it, so I'm going to get rid of my landscape. Don't worry about getting rid of yours. I just want to show you this, and I was going to fall for forever. So I have to delete it again because I was actually playing. I delete it. Now I have no landscape. Back to landscape. And now I have no landscape here. And instead of creating new, I can import from a file. What I probably didn't do was convert that to a PNG. So, oh, it is a PNG. Well, then this is, there we go. Well, open. Okay. There we go. And now we're going to see this rudimentary landscape. It's a weird scale. There's a floating house. These are things that happen in this world. I'm just going to keep the default settings for right now. I'm going to import, and it's going to maybe chug for a little bit. We'll see. Let's see where our landscape is. So we have a landscape. It's down here. And it's kind of a little foggy, so maybe get rid of a little fog for right now, just even though it's mysterious. And yeah, it looks like crap, but if I make it like 2000 by 2000, or that's not even enough. I said 200 by 200. I meant 2000 by 2000. We now kind of have this world in here that we can navigate. Maybe scale it down a little bit, 50. And now homeboy can come hang out here. Let's go back to our landscape. Let's make it at 0, 0, 0. Find a player, start. Oh, I'm in landscape edit mode. That was a no-no. Which I could flatten it, and I could do all the other sculpting tools, which are fine. And look, now I have a place where if I got a water from another place, I can put that water in there, and if it's lower, I can have a river. And there's my player start. That wasn't good. I have 2, that's why. Ball in front of me. I don't know if he's gonna make it or not. That's pretty far down. Anyway, that's just something that was kind of fun I was doing earlier today, but I think that it's not a tried and true thing just yet. I don't know. I think that maybe I'll do more research and I'll let you guys know if it's even worth doing this. I just thought it was cool because now that you have this file, if you were to make this world, you can export anything you make in Unreal as an FBX. So we can go the other way, and then you can 3D print this, CNC route it, laser cut it. Then you have a physical object you've made in Unreal that you're also using Unreal, and then you project back a 3D object onto a 3D object. It's a really nice illusion, especially when you're moving lights around and all that kind of stuff. It could be a fun thing for fabrication that your video is matching onto your object. You can also just make this in any 3D package and import it, and I think that's probably a much smarter idea. And I can show you how to do that in different software packages. But I just want to let you know that it's also cool to do real places and not just sit around and like sculpt things if that's not what you want to do. So one more thing. Preview which what? You mean on the resolution of your world? Well, that's because your graphics card can't handle what it can do. So you use a better computer, like that computer in there, or there's other things to maximize this stuff. We're dealing with large worlds now. This is actually an excellent point. Underneath your volumes, there's the thing called a Lightmass importance volume. One second. There's a thing called a Lightmass importance volume, and what it does is Unreal's trying to make beautiful lights everywhere, but if you put in this little invisible light thing, there you go, and scale it a whole bunch, you will have an area that Unreal knows to focus on for rendering out light, and it helps you when you're baking and you're building your light. So, and that's something that was brought up earlier today, was that wherever your character is, wherever your volume is, you want to maybe have better light there. And you might have seen some lighting errors. You need to add one of these Lightmass importance volumes. And then you go to build, right click on the side of it and say build lighting only. And it will look a lot better. The very first option is build lighting only. And that'll do a little bit of chugging. And then when it gets done, it's gonna, all your lights that are not moving, it's gonna bake the shadows in, so it always doesn't have to calculate that all in real time. It's a way to speed up all your gameplay and make things look better. If you want to render out a still image, I sent something to Brett, about there's a screenshot tool inside of Unreal, and it's called High Resolution Screenshot, and you can do like, I was using 640 by 480 frame on my computer screen, and it will send out up to 10 times that, like 100 megabyte. I think it's a TIFF file or something like that, and so you can do like 6,000 by whatever just by using this resolution multiplier. So it's a way of doing high resolution screenshots. It's a little finicky. Brett, how was it? Did you get it to work? Yeah. So everyone look at his homework, which he just uploaded, and you can see his high resolution screenshots. Also, you could use QuickTime. Just record playthroughs if you want to do playthroughs as well. QuickTime is screen recording capabilities. Hey. There is once you start doing camera moves. There's not as of just now. If you're on Windows, there's a thing called Fraps. On Mac, you can use this Camtasia software, ScreenFlow, QuickTime, and just do a screen recording. It might be a little bit choppy, but it'll definitely get the idea across. Yeah, well, Camtasia is good, but it's a little choppy because it's using your graphics card at the same time. We also have gotten a Blackmagic Intensity here for offloading onto another computer, so you guys can do documentation that way as well. And I can sit with you guys during office hours and show you how to use that. And that's how we captured all the stuff we did for the Met project, was through one of those, like a $200 thing that just renders from one computer to another. I started off with that today. Yeah. So the character has a material. If we go into our third-person character, you can always make the material invisible. So that is that mesh inherited in the same way. as before, we can get rid of the mannequin by just saying clear. Or he has two materials. You can put the same material in there and make him be glowy, or you can make him transparent, slightly transparent, or whatever you want to do. Matt, you have something?
I was gonna say, I think the user times now, if you go to the settings, the
Oh, you mean the scaling of like everything?
yeah, because sometimes when you render it, it's so low and
Yeah. So you could definitely, it's all the quality levels are scalable. It's definitely if you were building a project, you'd want to build on a really nice computer and make sure that everything is maxed out. But for your own personal computer use, I would keep it low just while you're building stuff. And yeah, if you want to get a nice screenshot, you can do that, and that will render it out nicer. That's a great point. You can make things epic. But to Olajune's point, like we don't want to have a landscape that's just one color. So I'll send you guys another screen recording of how to paint on various layers of color, so you can blend between sand and rocks and other different terrains. And it's just another element of painting. It just takes a little bit of time to set up. It just builds on what we've already done. We ran out of time. It's TNO. We got pretty far though. I do want to show you guys one more thing, if you guys can hold it for 1 second. Now that I brought back my landscape, and I'm going to get rid of my fog, there's a thing called a Foliage Tool. It can be used with any static meshes you have, especially really, really, really small things with low polygons. You can put grasses in there, which uses materials. You can put, we've used tin cans, all this different kind of thing. And it's a way of painting meshes on there. So with my content selected, I'm going to get rid of my search information, and go to meshes. Props, and I can maybe have this little dude here. I'm going to drag it into my foliage, and I'm going to have a rock here, drag it into my foliage, and where this corner frame thing is. And now I have a paint tool, and I can paint these things in there. So, yeah, sorry, there's so much. So we have density. I can make it less dense, and this can get really complicated quick. So. So now it's a lot less dense. All the foliage is one thing, so as I change the settings for one of it, it's all going to change. There we go. Brush sizing it down, or I can make it larger. So now I'll have it more sparse. Maybe make it. There we go. See, now it's like a little outcroppings of rocks. You can. I think it was. Somebody found the open world content. There's all sorts of grasses and trees, and you can paint trees, you can paint grasses. You can add in wind, and they'll reflect the wind blowing. So these are just different quick things that you'll see with the landscape. That let's see, wind directional source. So there is going to be default wind source, and you can change which direction it's going by looking at this stuff. Make it a hurricane. Let's see what happens. Now I'm wandering in this world. I have no idea what those things are, but I do know that I go really slow. Alright, that's it, guys. Hey guys, this is a amendment to today's lesson. I wanted to show you how to start painting a landscape. We just added a material, but it's not so interesting, as you can see. When you're close up, it's fine, but we want to have a little bit of a change in materials, and you can paint different layers of the materials. So I'm going to show you how to create a layered material, and it'll be a quick little add-on. I'm going to go to materials folder, and I'm going to keep the previous one. I'm just going to make a new one from scratch, and we're going to spend a little time with this, making it good. This material is going to be landscape 1, and we're going to open it up. So this is where we were before, from scratch right here. And we're going to bring in textures just like we did before, and kind of flesh this out a little bit. So we have a, let's see, this is not working very well. Now it's working well. Okay. Okay, we are going to bring in some new textures. So we're going to make a blend between 3 different textures. Sometimes you have sand then it moves into grass, and as you go higher, if you think about elevation, it'll eventually go into like rocks at the top of your mountain. And you can do that using the paintbrush tool that's in the landscape tool with the material, but first we'll have to create the different levels. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to find whatever I have built into the starter content. Let's see if they have dirt. They don't. Maybe they have sand. Looks like we have some sand texture, so I'm going to bring in sandstone. So this is going to be layer 1. Here we're going to go to bring in grass. We have grass is the one from before. And then the third layer, let's look for rocks. Rocks. Rock. There we go, rock. Basalt. Okay. So we have 3 different textures. Actually, I said a fusion mask. We're going to look for the color on that one. Rock. And polished fusion slate. Rock mesh. What is that? That's nothing. Well, it can still work, but it's not what I want. Let's just see what we have in the textures folder real quick. Content, starter content, textures. There we go. Let us do. Oh, screw it. Let's do some cobblestones. Okay. Back to the landscape. Now that we have that one selected, we can just bring it in with the arrow. There we go. Now we have 3 different textures. So we're going to do what's called a layer blend. Right here. And first we have to create what the layer is blending. So we have 3 elements we want to blend. So we need to tell it we have 3 elements. Boom, boom, boom. Hit the plus sign over here on the left. And we have 3 different elements. We're going to give it a name that's meaningful to us. It doesn't really matter what we call it, but I am going to call it sand and grass and stone. Okay, so we are going to do a blend by heights because it changes as we get higher. You can also do an alpha from scratch. An alpha would be if you're going to layer maybe one layer on top of another, like you're going to, instead of just blending 2 textures together, you would have like snow on top of rocks. That would be an alpha, and you can look that up and do it, but I'm going to show you height for right now. And then we need to decide that as we know, like I told you, all these values here are from 0 to 1. We have to create that blend, and the most obvious thing for doing these 3 textures is to have one start at 0, then the other one be at 0.5, and then the final one will be the 1. Now I'm going to look in here, and we'll see that we have layers and then the height. The height is actually based off of an alpha. We're just going to give, so we have sand. From sand, we're going to give it the color, and then we're going to give it an alpha. This alpha is determined by what number is here. So at this point, these 2 levels will be completely transparent because we're at level 0. This makes sense when we actually get into painting it. But basically, this alpha will change of each different blended layer based off of the number we put in when we paint. So we have the next layer, which is on top. And then we have the next layer. And then this is all going to go into a color. Now, you can give everything the same metallic, specular roughness, or you can make one of these layer blend nodes for each of these different things. So you would copy this, and it can get pretty big, but it all makes sense because it's doing the same thing just over and over and over again. So these things, if you took them into Crazy Bump and you created new normals, you probably want to have another layer blend and then bring in the normals textures for each of these so that the normals would match the texture you're bringing in. But you can give it all one metallic, one specular, constant like we did before. For right now, we're just going to stick with doing just the color so you guys get the idea and you can take it on from there. So I'm going to save it so that's stored and ready to go. And we're going to go back to our landscape. So up here in the top left we have the landscape mode. And then you can see that we actually have a paint option. Create paint. Great. Actually, before we even get there, we need to go to our landscape and actually put in this new layer, this new material into it, because we're now using the blended one. So I could probably find it easier and I can search for it because I can never remember what I call these things. So we put it in the materials folder. It is material landscape. And we're going to say yes, that one. And just so you get a better idea of what this looks like, when we go back into there, it gives you a preview option. We can say, let's preview the weight of this at 0, at 0.5, and preview weight at 1. So this is actually just showing us what having half of the grass available and all the stone would be. Let's say like this is now, if you're halfway between the two of these, they'd both be 0.5. And compound shaders, so stone. So if they're both 0.5, it would be grass. But if these are going to be at, what would this look like at 1? Well, it's going to look like stone because boink, boink, boink. I'm doing something funny, obviously. Height blend, 1, 1, 1. Oh, I was changing that number. My bad. Boink. Well, let's forget about doing all that stuff. I might just record this again. Anyway, this is just for previewing it. It has nothing to do with actually the painting it. So if we go into landscape, we have to do one thing before we can start painting, and that's creating a file for it. So you see right here, if we go back to landscape, painting, and then we have these three options, but it says there's none there. Well, for some reason we have to actually kind of compute all those features we just made. It's not just good enough for it to be a material. So we're going to create some more layer info. So this is what you're supposed to do. Hit weight blended layer. It's going to prompt me to save it somewhere. I can save it materials. Okay. And then we'll do that for both of these, or all three of these. Weight blended layer, materials. Great. Materials. Great. Now it's all loaded in. Well, this one's not loaded in, but it's selected over there, so I'm going to load it in myself. That was a little glitch. Stone. Stone. Well, I'm going to save and see why that's not loading in. Something's wrong with my stone layer. Well, there's one thing we need to add on too, and that is the UVs. So UVs for like little objects are a different thing from landscapes. Landscapes have a much larger scale, and so we need to let it know that there is a landscape coordinate. And we're just going to plug that into each of these. Instead of doing regular UVs, we did landscape UVs. It's just a different scale and has different features that we can get into and mess around with. Go back to layer blend. Save that. So, oh, now there it is. Magically appeared. Who knows why. So I'm compiling shaders, but we can still go ahead and paint. Make a little more space for me to paint with. So I briefly forgot how to do what I was going to be doing. So where we left off is that whichever one layer you want to paint on there, you need to let it know how strong you want to paint on. So if I want to paint on stone, but only at half transparency, I can paint it on with this brush. There, I'm painting on stone. But it's hard to tell that it's being half transparent unless we go to grass. I want to paint on grass half transparent. You're going to do a little swatch across. It's going to recompile the shaders. It's definitely something you want to get a good laptop do on. And then you'll see that there's a layer of grass like spray painted on top of the stone. Let's say we want a touch of sand. So we'll do maybe 0.1 of sand. And then we'll say just a little swatch of sand on top of everything. And then if I take my homunculus, I go hang out over here where all that happened. You'll see that yes indeed, there's swatches of all these different colors on top of each other. And so I've been painting on a landscape. Doesn't look great. We could definitely change the UVs. They look like a little too much repetition, so we need to scale it up a little bit. But I can take us back to player start, where I've done a little bit more. We can kind of do that again. So as we load everything together, the tool strength, let's say we want a nice good helping of sand to start off with. Give us sand to start off with. It's going to override everything because it has no transparency. Start with sand or dirt or whatever you have, or painting everything. Nice blackout. There we go. And on top of that, we want to say, oh, well, it gets grassy around the house. So going to grass now, and haven't had that much rain, so maybe the grass isn't too lush. Maybe we'll just take it down to 0.5, and we'll paint that on top. And see, this is just kind of like this round thing. You have all your brushes. You can use different alphas or patterns and that kind of stuff to make it a little bit more interesting. See, there's a pattern that we could use, like so. My view options, make these a little bit bigger so I can see what they really are without having to do too much scrolling. And I really like the idea of whatever the hell that is. So now if we paint, it's going to use that texture. I see those 4 markings are going to show up. So you can make your own in Photoshop. Photoshop has its own brushes. And then I'm going to go back to a regular circle. And I want to put on some stone here on the cliffs. So it's pretty stony. I'm going to give it a 1 for this area right here. And then I want to soften it up at the edge maybe and give it a 0.5. For the edges. So boom. Blends there. It looks a little bit strong. Maybe we'll give it a 0.25. Painting on all these layers. Looks great, right? Much better to get closer. See what you're doing. So you're just blending these layers together. This is art, people. Now, I'm going to take a lay of the land And first of all, it's just going to fill up whatever grids if it's blank. And then we can start painting. In fact, probably still do like some sort of baseline, huge brush, look at everything. So I'm going to play. There we go. Got my various paint swabs. Fix the collisions on my house. And I'll go inside of there. Farmhouse. I can go out of painting mode. Farmhouse. And then I'm going to go to the static mesh editor. And all I did was I went to this collisions window. I think I did. No, I went over here to static mesh settings. Instead of just saying default, which made this big box that wouldn't let me in, I said I want to have complex collisions. It kind of disappears because you can't see it because it's the exact mesh of this house. So before I couldn't get in that porch, now I can set a spell on the porch. I can put a hammock up in there, and it's my place to hang out. And go inspect a little bit of our drawing and go see our foliage. Now foliage doesn't have collisions, so grass it makes more sense to walk through. But here you're not going to have collisions because that's too much for it to calculate. It's just supposed to be things you walk through. That's why it's considered foliage. Obviously we can make it with anything we want to. We can make this human beings. You definitely have fun with the giant amount of repetition, but it's not going to have collisions. If you want to have a couple of, let's say like you're about to go into this area right here with all these pieces, and you want not to be able to go in here, this is when you use, like maybe take some static meshes and put there in front. Or we have a volume called a blocking volume, and it doesn't let you walk in. I can take this blocking volume, put it right here, and then mess around with the rotation and the scaling, and it would keep me from being able to go in there. So take that and make it the wrong way. Make it a little wider, and make it a little bit taller. So now, I hit play, all the way over there, let's run, let's run. I find out wherever those things were, and I try to go forward, and it won't let me. I'm stuck. I'm not stuck, I just can't go in there because I put a blocking volume there. So that's a little trick. You can add a little collision blocking volume to keep you from going into areas like that. And I can just ramble on for forever. So we'll end it there and I'll edit this down.